The exact cause of the explosion in Beirut, Lebanon on the 4th of August that killed over 200 people is still under investigation.
With neighbouring Israel and Syria both having previously partially occupied the country following Lebanon's 15-year bloody civil war,
Establishing the facts surrounding the explosion in the immediate aftermath was critically important. With fake videos quickly circulating, we speak to one of the people leading the charge for truth around the event.
Nick, thanks for joining me. Give us a bit of a backstory to yourself.
I was in the army. I was an officer in the Rifles. Went to do a master's at KCL. In 2016, I published my first piece of work on Bellingcat. And I continue to publish with them as part of the investigations team.
In terms of the incident we saw in Beirut, so this was obviously the huge explosion which got a lot of news and media attention. How did you go about sort of looking at that and saying, okay, well, let's figure out what's actually happened here, and what did you do?
In the aftermath of these kind of incidents, you tend to find that rumours start flying around. There's the kind of infamous phrase, lies can run around the world before the truth got their boots on. In these incredibly confusing situations, is try and collate as much information as possible and try and get some kind of situational awareness of what's actually happened and when. It became quite important to work out what had actually caused this explosion because, it's Beirut, you have Syria next door, you have Israel to the south, you have people saying this is an Israeli airstrike, there was people saying the sound of jets overhead, which we later established was actually the sound of the fire shortly before it actually exploded. So you're trying to place all these images and videos into a timeline to create a coherent sequence of events so you can understand how the situation has developed.
You're obviously wading through all this information, trying to piece together the timeline of events, working out what's going on, and then sort of where do you go next?
Initially, we wanted to get out just this open source survey as quickly as possible. Not many people actually knew really what had happened. There are reports of like multiple different explosions, and then we started looking at going into more depth and looking at some of the fakes that started emerging, but that's a little bit further on.
I guess in that environment where it's been at the heart of conflicts previously, and there's always going to be that immediate suspicion that somebody's behind this and that it's a deliberate act. But
all the evidence that we saw indicated it was a horrible industrial accident. Sometimes there is a key point at which putting out a piece of information which is reliable and clearly demonstrates our conclusions, supports our conclusions, can have a really beneficial effect on the information environment. In-depth analysis probably won't be possible until later on. Within a couple of days, we noticed that a couple of fake videos have started to emerge. People were talking about the jet sound. I had friends who were Lebanese or had family in Lebanon who were started to post stuff around on WhatsApp groups, and they started to say, hey, yeah, my uncle or my grandfather sent me this video saying that shows an Israeli missile strike. And at that point it became pretty clear that it was necessary to look at some of these videos, and when it became very, very clear very rapidly they were fake, to debunk them.
Again, what's your process there in terms of debunking that?
Have you ever heard the phrase, there's no such thing as a good fake? People talk about fakes all the time as if it's like the end of our ability to interpret videos and images as if they're useful bits of information. But the reality is the vast majority of the kind of fake information or disinformation that we deal with, or that you see after these kind of incidents, are videos from other events that someone has taken and then posted. The fakes that we saw after Beirut were probably the first time I've seen anyone actually try and really comprehensively try and actually fake an event. There were 4 videos if you count one that had less circulation. 2 of them showed was quite clearly a bird flying across the screen and then behind a building and then the explosion happening. I mean, it was pretty clear because 1, you couldn't see a missile in any of the other videos, and 2, because it was flapping. And then the other 2 videos, someone had taken a cartoon missile and then superimposed it on 2 genuine videos that had been posted. But because it's only on screen for 3 frames, if you watch it on your mobile phone, it's very easy to look at that video and say, hey, actually, that's what happened. Yeah, so we went through and debunked the videos, showed what they could be. I don't think I'd usually engage in that kind of debunking because a lot of the time, I don't think it's that effective. So if someone took our article and showed it to someone who genuinely believed this, they could say, well, I don't believe Bellingcat, they are a tool of the Western imperialist government. But when someone says, points out to them, hey, but actually the video that you shows an Israeli airstrike is actually a cartoon missile. That I think actually is likely to have much more of an effect because it's just stupid and absurd.
Right. Somebody's still gone to the effort of putting that together. Do you go as far as trying to work out who's behind it and why? And
I think there is a threshold at which it is useful to do that, but the vast majority of the time it is not worth going over that threshold. Indeed, it may be precisely what that person wants. So in one of the videos that we looked at, it had a email address watermarked over the video, and we chose to actually blur that Gmail address because it may be in the case someone wanted this video to go viral in order to expose this email address for a particular reason. There was one particular interesting piece of information that came out of it. There was a website that was being passed around saying that this ammonium nitrate had been offloaded and then was being carted across the border into Syria to be sold to rebel force in Syria. But the issue with that page is that there were all kinds of things that were just slightly wrong with it. Like the font was wrong, the title colors were different from all the other articles that had certainly been posted in 2013. Who's gone through the trouble to write up this fake article, posted on this defunct news website? This isn't just someone who's taken another video, whacked a filter on it, and a cartoon missile. Someone has put in a lot of effort into trying to make this look genuine. But yeah, so there may be more to come on that on the Bellingcat website in a couple of weeks' time.
To listen to the full, unedited version of this recording, or learn more about Jane's open source intelligence, visit janes.com/podcast20.